Here with us today. Tom Church, Church Law Firm. There you go.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, the committee, for having me today. My name is Tom Church. I'm an attorney here in Atlanta. I've got a robust criminal practice that takes me all over the state and the country. But for the last few years, I've been practicing a lot in the hemp space, and specifically representing individuals and businesses that have been targeted or threatened by law enforcement based on what I would call a misinterpretation of the law. I was able to obtain an injunction against the Gwinnett County District Attorney who was threatening businesses, who had raided different businesses. I was able to get an injunction against the sheriff in Catoosa County who was threatening enforcement actions, and y'all's esteemed former colleague Jeff Mullis was one of my witnesses in that case. And then most recently in November, we had the Elements case, where the Court of Appeals in a non-binding decision held that Delta 8 and Delta 10 are not controlled substances. Now, even though we had that opinion, since then, there have been additional raids throughout Georgia. I represent folks in Tifton, folks in Columbus, folks in Noonan, who have been either arrested or had their assets seized, or who continue facing a threat of prosecution. And the perspective I wanted to lend the committee today is that these folks are being prosecuted under felony marijuana trafficking statutes. They are being treated identically to illegal drug dealers. And I think we can all agree there's a difference between a hemp business, a business owner who is doing their best to comply with the law, and someone in a dark alleyway that's selling you some unmarked, unlabeled substance. And so I wanted to kind of bring that perspective to the committee when we're talking about, we all want clarity here. And candidly, even though it has benefited me as a lawyer, I'm all for being put out of business when it comes to this hemp stuff, because it really pains me to see some of these business owners being dragged off in front of their families in handcuffs. I've got a case right now against the district attorney and the sheriff in Columbus who have prosecuted and seized all the assets of a business down there, despite the fact that other businesses right next door are selling the same exact stuff. And so if we want to put an end to these kind of lawsuits, I think it's so important for the legislature to get this right. And let me also add that because these are business owners and not drug dealers, a lot of them are supporting a lot of these regulations. I don't know a single hemp business that doesn't have a 21 and up sign on their store. I don't know a single hemp business that doesn't keep lab tests in their drawers to show that the products they're selling comply with the law. And specifically towards this bill and some of the other bills I've seen, I wanted to lend a little perspective of why these bills might not put me out of business, why we might still have these headaches from these kind of lawsuits. And that is specifically because the Farm Bill in 2018, the federal Farm Bill, legalized a very broad variety of cannabis and cannabis extracts. And there's also language that suggests that the states cannot go in a way that is wholly inconsistent with those federal regulations. And that's where we get to the nitty gritty about these other cannabinoids, Delta 8, Delta 10, HHC, right? And there are currently lawsuits in federal court in Arkansas, Indiana, that challenge these state laws that are more restrictive than the Farm Bill based on federal preemption. They're saying you cannot go against what the federal government has done here.
Have they been decided yet? Anything definitive been decided on that? Because we keep hearing FDA is going to extend their prohibitions beyond just Delta 9.
Right. I think we've seen some injunctions, but no final rulings yet and no higher court rulings.
So you support the bill or not?
In the current form, no.
Okay.
And especially not with the additions that I saw this morning, which I don't think were...
The isomers.
I do like Senator Robertson. He presented, I think it's Senate Bill 437.
Yeah, we passed that.
Yeah, and he's from my
Senate. Yeah.
Absolutely, and he's from my neck of the woods, Columbus, Georgia, and I know he is someone who's got some principled positions on these products, and as he said, the train has left the station. So rather than trying to ban things or try to effectively ban them through these really low milligram requirements or these excessive kind of regulations.
We're not trying to ban them. We're just trying to protect children and protect our citizens from overdosing on THC unexpectedly when they're told, oh, this is just a CBD product that there's less than 0.3% of THC in it. When you pile them all together, they can be a whole lot more than that. They can have psychoactive effect, right?
Right. It takes a village, right? We need responsible parenting. We need responsible shopkeepers. We need responsible law enforcement. And that's kind of why I'm here today, is because I want to see an end to the raids. I want to see an end to business owners being treated like criminals. And let me also add, I'm glad you brought up the FDA, because they certainly have a stake in this too.
You kind of wrap it up.
Yes, sir. I was going to conclude with the fact that we've also had the federal government weigh in on this. The DEA, in several different contexts, have been very clear, more recently than in 2020, that Delta 8, Delta 10, all of these cannabinoids are explicitly legal. Unless they have 0.3% Delta 9 THC. So
Right.
one final word is, I would say, as we talk about THC, as we talk about these different cannabinoids, we have to be specific, because it's Delta 9 that the legislature targeted, and it's Delta 9 that Congress targeted, and that is what the focus should be on, not trying to get rid of or push out these other products.
Thank you. Chris Brown. If I could get you to try to hold it to about 2 minutes. I got one more speaker, then we're going to take action.
Sure. Chris Brown, Cannabis Access Reform and Education, and I agree with the previous comments.
Could you say that again? Who are you with?
Care for Georgia is Cannabis Access Reform and Education.
All right. So
Right. So since 2018, we've been providing education to the general public, which includes civic leaders, politicians, faith leaders. I think the exploration of cannabinoids has been booming since the pandemic. I think as people sought to have therapeutic relief, and as the industry opened up, we see more retail spaces open up for access, even as we hadn't been able to expand our program here in Georgia with the low THC program. I think that we do need some form of compliance. I do understand some of the regulations that is needed to provide structure, but I think that we have an overreach in what we're trying to do. This bill is not favorable as written, especially not as amended. I think that with all the bills that's floating around, that we could actually put together a comprehensive plan to include some of the impact that we don't know, and getting input from some of our providers, and being able to still move that forward if we involve those people and people who represent those bodies. So it's not favorable as written. I look forward to you guys striking this down, coming back to the department to put in some favorable amendments. I think that as we talk about age restrictions, we do have patients that was at the time that we voted on this, may have been under the age of 18. Some of them are over the age of 18. Some of them still below. They're still patients seeking relief to find medicine in which ways that Georgia don't provide.
So you don't like the under 21 prohibition?
Well, I'm just acknowledging that there are people, there are still patients that are under 21. So nobody never takes that into consideration as we talk about children. We leveraged our bill about patient advocacy around children. And so I'm a patient and caregiver. And so as a caregiver to my mother, and to also understanding people who are patients to children, they become patients themselves. So therefore, you start to see a reach to alternative medicines that's legal, and this is what hemp-derived products are given.
Thank you for being with us today, Mr. Brown. Last speaker, Michael Mumper.
Thank you, Chairman, and the Senate Committee. I'm Michael Mumper with Georgians for Responsible Marijuana Policy. We see that this bill is trying to legalize and regulate hemp consumables, limit bad actors, and keep our kids and citizens safe. 1322 does a very good job of setting up that framework for regulating. However, unless we include Delta 8 and the other synthetic cannabinoids, we're going to miss the mark. Why is that important? 4 reasons. Journal of American Medical Association, Poison Control, our Georgia Board of Pharmacy, and then I'm in 19 states. Journal of American Medical Association just published an article in a study by USC's Keck School of Medicine that 11.2% of our 12th graders in the country are using Delta 8 products. Those numbers are higher in the Southeast. Secondly, Dr. Gaylord Lopez from the Georgia Poison Control Center tells us that there have been over 250 calls of toddlers 6 years and younger overdosing from Delta 8 products in the last 3 years. So Dr. Lopez is very concerned about Delta 8 remaining a legal, unenforced product. Thirdly, our own Georgia Board of Pharmacy in Rule 48034.04 has the following 5 points to make about synthetic cannabinoids, including Delta 8. A, that synthetic cannabinoids have an extremely high potential for abuse, that scientific evidence and scientific knowledge of the pharmacological effects of these compounds demonstrate that the public is at extreme risk if they are not regulated as controlled substances. And again, this is Delta 8. That the pattern of abuse of these compounds and the scope of significance of that abuse support regulation. That there exists an imminent peril to the public health and welfare with regard to the abuse of these compounds, and that these compounds have the same risk to the public health of citizens of the state of Georgia as other substances already contained in Schedule 1 of the Controlled Substances Act.
That's the Georgia Pharmacy Board's
That's right.
position? And is THC a Schedule 1 drug?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes. I will say that Wyoming just became the 19th state in the country to ban Delta 8 products 2 days ago. And I'll finally add that Colorado and California, which have years of experience of recreational marijuana, have landed on 10 milligram doses of hemp consumables in packages limited to 100.
All right, I'm going to have to cut you off there. Thank you. There's a lot of my members are about to have to go to Appropriations Committee. We are going to continue our hearing, but first of all, is there any motion on this bill?
I got a motion, Mr. Chairman.
What's your motion?
Table this bill, Mr. Chairman, if it needs more work.
Is there a second? Second from Senator Anderson. What's the pleasure of the committee? All in favor of tabling, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All opposed? 4. The bill is tabled. Thank you for being here today. All right, I got several committee members. You are free to leave to go to appropriations, but I want you to come back because we're going to be hearing this bill on